What if the most powerful form of manipulation is one the manipulator doesn't even understand? Picture this: a room shrouded in half-light, the steady tick of a clock echoing in the silence. Somewhere, unseen, invisible hands are pulling strings. But these hands don't belong to a master villain or a shadowy figure in a smoky backroom. They belong to people we know, people we trust, people who, perhaps, don't even realize what they're doing. We call them narcissists. But what if that word is just the surface of something deeper, something more insidious? What if narcissists are not just puppeteers of others, but also of their own minds, driven by forces they can't see or control? Imagine a world where manipulation isn't a conscious act, but a reflex, where people, without ever intending to, hack the brain chemistry of those around them. They bend reality, rewrite memories, distort self-worth, not with malice, but with instinct. They create cycles of addiction, dependency, and control, all while believing they're simply being themselves. This isn't science fiction. It's the hidden architecture of human relationships. It's the silent war waged in boardrooms, bedrooms, and social feeds. It's the reason some people leave us feeling addicted, confused, or hollow, while they walk away unscathed. By the end of this film, you'll see the world differently. You'll see the invisible strings that shape our lives. And you'll understand how, in the theater of human connection, the most dangerous puppeteers are the ones who don't even know they're holding the strings. Long before the word narcissist entered our vocabulary, the seeds of its meaning were already sown in the stories we told ourselves. The ancient Greeks gave us the myth of Narcissus, a beautiful youth so entranced by his own reflection that he wasted away, unable to love anything but the image in the water. His fate was a warning, echoing through centuries. Beware the dangers of self-obsession, for it can consume not only the self, but all who draw near. But the story of narcissism didn't end at the water's edge. It seeped into the halls of power, the thrones of empires, and the hearts of those who would shape the world. History is littered with figures who, like Narcissus, were captivated by their own image. Yet unlike the myth, their self-obsession became a weapon. Roman emperors demanded worship as living gods. Medieval kings surrounded themselves with sycophants, their egos swelling with every whispered flattery. In the 20th century, cult leaders and demagogues rose to power, their charisma intoxicating, their need for adoration insatiable. These were not isolated cases of personal flaw. They were survival strategies, honed in the crucible of human competition. In ancient courts, the ability to charm, manipulate, and command attention could mean the difference between life and death. In modern boardrooms, the same traits can build empires or destroy them. Narcissism, it seems, is not an anomaly. It is a recurring pattern woven into the fabric of civilization itself. Even today, we see echoes of Narcissus in the influencers who curate their lives for adoration, in the leaders who demand loyalty above all else, in the everyday interactions where self-interest quietly trumps empathy. Narcissism is not just a clinical label. It is a force, ancient, adaptive, and ever-present, that has shaped and continues to shape the course of human history. Beneath the surface of every human interaction, a silent symphony of chemicals plays out in the brain. Most of us are only dimly aware of this hidden orchestra, but for those who cross paths with a narcissist, the music can become a siren's song, irresistible, intoxicating, and ultimately dangerous. It begins innocently enough. The narcissist enters your life like a burst of sunlight, flooding you with attention, praise, and affection. This is the phase psychologists call love bombing. Every message, every compliment, every lingering glance is a carefully timed hit of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. Dopamine is the same neurotransmitter that lights up when we win a game, eat chocolate, or fall in love. It's the feeling of being chosen, special, seen. In the presence of a narcissist, this feeling is amplified to an almost addictive degree. But the seduction doesn't stop there. As the bond deepens, oxytocin, the so-called cuddle hormone, is released. This chemical is responsible for trust, intimacy, and attachment. It's what binds parent to child, lover to lover, friend to friend. When a narcissist showers you with affection, your brain responds by forging a powerful emotional connection, one that feels as real and necessary as air. Then, without warning, the music changes. The warmth vanishes. The praise turns to criticism, the affection to coldness. This is the devaluation phase. Suddenly, the same person who made you feel invincible now makes you question your worth. Cortisol, the stress hormone, floods your system. You become anxious, desperate to regain the approval that once felt so abundant. The unpredictability of a narcissist's behavior, sometimes loving, sometimes cruel, creates a psychological phenomenon known as intermittent reinforcement. This is the same principle that keeps gamblers glued to slot machines. The reward is unpredictable, so the pursuit becomes compulsive. Adrenaline joins the mix, heightening the sense of excitement and danger. The relationship becomes a roller coaster, each high more euphoric, each low more devastating. The brain, caught in this chemical storm, begins to crave the narcissist's approval like a drug. The cycle of love bombing, devaluation, and discard is not just emotional manipulation. It's a biological hack, exploiting the very systems that govern trust, love, and fear. But what about the narcissist? Are they master manipulators, or are they too caught in their own web? Neuroscience suggests that narcissists themselves are driven by a relentless need for validation, power, and control. Their brains may be wired for hypersensitivity to reward and a blunted response to empathy. Some studies indicate that narcissists have lower baseline levels of oxytocin, making genuine connection difficult, and higher levels of dopamine, fueling their constant search for stimulation and admiration. Their behaviors, while destructive, are often rooted in deep psychological wounds, early experiences of neglect, insecurity, or trauma that left them perpetually hungry for affirmation. The chilling truth is that the narcissist's manipulation is not just social, but biological. It's a dance of chemicals, a hijacking of the brain's most fundamental systems. The victim becomes addicted to the highs and lows, while the narcissist remains trapped in their own cycle of need and emptiness. This is the science of seduction, a process as old as humanity itself, now illuminated by the cold light of neuroscience. In the end, the real danger lies not in the narcissist's intentions, but in the invisible forces they unleash. Forces that can bind, blind, and break us unless we learn to see the strings. Why do we fall for narcissists, even when the warning signs are there, sometimes flashing in neon? The answer lies in a psychological phenomenon as old as human connection itself, the mirror effect. Narcissists are masterful at reflecting back an idealized version of their target. In the early stages, they seem to see you more clearly than anyone ever has. They echo your dreams, your values, your quirks, and your pain. It feels as if you've finally found someone who truly understands you, someone who validates your existence in a way that feels almost magical. This is not mere flattery. It's a deep, almost spiritual resonance. The euphoria of being seen and chosen is intoxicating, and for a moment, you feel whole. But this mirror is a trick of the light. What the narcissist reflects is not your true self, but a carefully constructed image designed to draw you in. The more you see yourself in their eyes, the more you crave their approval. This is where attachment theory comes into play. People with insecure attachment styles, those who grew up with inconsistent love or validation, are especially vulnerable. They are primed to seek out relationships that echo the unpredictability of their earliest bonds, mistaking anxiety for passion and inconsistency for depth. Empaths, too, are at risk. Their heightened sensitivity to others' emotions makes them easy targets for narcissists, who exploit their compassion and desire to heal. Even the most intelligent, self-aware individuals can be ensnared because the manipulation operates on a level deeper than logic. it taps into the primal need for connection and belonging. Modern society amplifies these vulnerabilities. Loneliness is epidemic, and social media offers endless opportunities for curated self-presentation and validation seeking. The cult of personality, whether in influencers, leaders, or everyday relationships, thrives on the same dynamics that fuel narcissistic manipulation. In the end, the mirror effect is not just about the narcissist's power, but about our own longing to be seen, understood, and loved. It forces us to ask, are we, in our hunger for affirmation, complicit in our own manipulation? And if so, what does it take to break the spell? Narcissism is not confined to the private sphere. Its fingerprints are everywhere, etched into the architecture of our institutions, woven into the fabric of our collective consciousness. When we zoom out from the intimacy of personal relationships, a disturbing pattern emerges. The same psychological tactics that ensnare individuals are mirrored on a grand scale, shaping the destinies of nations, corporations, and entire cultures. Consider the world of politics. Throughout history, charismatic leaders have risen to power not just through policy or principle, but through the art of seduction. They love-bomb the masses with grand promises, stirring speeches, and carefully crafted images of unity and hope. The crowd, hungry for meaning and belonging, responds with adulation. Dopamine surges through the collective bloodstream. The leader becomes a symbol, a mirror reflecting the people's highest aspirations. But the cycle does not end there. When the honeymoon fades, the tactics shift. Devaluation takes the form of scapegoating, blaming outsiders, minorities, or dissenters for society's ills. The stress hormone cortisol floods the public psyche, fueling anxiety and division. The leader's approval becomes unpredictable, their favor a prize to be won or lost. The population, caught in a cycle of hope and fear, becomes addicted to the drama, unable to look away. In the corporate world, similar dynamics play out. CEOs and executives cultivate cults of personality, demanding loyalty and punishing dissent. Employees are love-bombed with perks and praise, only to be discarded when they no longer serve the bottom line. The media, too, is complicit, amplifying outrage, manufacturing heroes and villains, and feeding the public a steady diet of validation and outrage. Viral influencers rise and fall on waves of adoration and cancellation, their followers hooked on the emotional roller coaster. This is the machinery of collective narcissism. Echo chambers form, reinforcing beliefs and silencing dissent. Critical thinking erodes, replaced by tribal loyalty and emotional reactivity. The systems that should foster dialogue and understanding instead reward manipulation and spectacle. Are we living in a society engineered by narcissists for narcissists? Or have we, through our own vulnerabilities and desires, built these systems ourselves? The answer is not simple. Narcissistic power structures persist because they exploit universal human needs for connection, certainty, and significance. They hack the same brain chemistry that binds us to individuals, scaling it up to bind us to ideologies, brands, and movements. The danger is not just in the leaders or institutions themselves, but in the way we respond. When we surrender our critical faculties for the comfort of belonging, when we trade skepticism for certainty, we become complicit in our own manipulation. The cycle continues, not because of a few master manipulators, but because the machinery of narcissism is powered by the collective. In this light, the personal is political, and the political is personal. The same forces that shape our most intimate relationships are at work in the world around us, pulling strings we cannot always see. To break free, we must first recognize the patterns within ourselves and within the systems we inhabit. Only then can we begin to reclaim our agency, both as individuals and as a society. If narcissistic manipulation is a spell, then awareness is the first incantation that begins to break it. The moment we recognize the patterns, the cycles of idealization and devaluation, the chemical highs and lows, the subtle erosion of self-worth, we reclaim a measure of power. Awareness is not just intellectual, it is visceral. It is the moment you see the strings and realize you're not a puppet, but a person with agency. Philosophers have long argued that self-knowledge is the foundation of freedom. In the context of narcissistic dynamics, this means learning to recognize your own vulnerabilities, the longing to be seen, the fear of abandonment, the hunger for validation. Psychology teaches us that these needs are universal, but they can be met in ways that do not leave us open to exploitation. Setting boundaries, emotional, psychological, even digital, is an act of self-respect. It is a refusal to let someone else define your reality. Real-life stories of recovery reveal the brain's remarkable capacity for healing. The same neurochemistry that once bound us to a narcissist can, over time, be rewired through new experiences of trust, safety, and genuine connection. Support networks, friends, therapists, communities become lifelines, helping to restore a sense of self that was once lost. Critical thinking and skepticism are not just intellectual virtues. They're shields against manipulation in a world saturated with propaganda and performance. But resistance is not just about defense. It is about building something new. To become conscious architects of our own minds and societies, we must foster environments where authenticity is valued over image, where empathy is prized over charisma, and where connection is rooted in truth rather than illusion. The journey from victim to survivor, and from survivor to creator, is not easy, but it is possible. The spell can be broken, and in its place, we can build a life and a world where the invisible strings of manipulation are replaced by the visible bonds of understanding, respect, and genuine human connection. The invisible puppeteers are no longer hidden. The strings, once subtle and unseen, now shimmer in the light of understanding. We began this journey in the shadows, questioning whether manipulation could be so powerful, so pervasive, that even the manipulator remains unaware. Now, as the curtain falls, the answer is clear. The war for your mind is not waged only by others, but within yourself. Every day, we are surrounded by forces that seek to shape our thoughts, our emotions, our very sense of self. Some are obvious: politicians, advertisers, influencers. Others are more insidious, woven into the fabric of our relationships, our histories, our own desires. The brain chemistry hacks of narcissists are just one example of how easily we can be led, how quickly we can become addicted to validation, approval, and belonging. But knowledge is not a curse. It is a shield. The greatest defense against manipulation is not paranoia, but understanding. When we see the patterns, when we recognize the cycles, we reclaim the power to choose. We become less susceptible to the highs and lows, the love bombing and discard, the drama and division that so often define our lives and our societies. This is not a call to fear, but to awareness. The real battle is not against narcissists, or even against the systems that reward them. It is against the unconscious forces within us all, the needs, the wounds, the blind spots that make us vulnerable to manipulation. To see the strings is to begin to cut them, one by one, until we are no longer puppets, but conscious creators of our own reality. In the end, the unseen war for your mind is fought not in the shadows, but in the light of self-awareness. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful hack of all. What if the line between victim and perpetrator is not as clear as we'd like to believe? What if beneath the surface, the same impulses that drive the narcissist also live within each of us? Evolutionary psychology offers a sobering perspective. In the ancient world, survival often depended on the ability to influence, persuade, and sometimes deceive. Charm could secure alliances. Self-promotion could attract mates or resources. Even manipulation, in small doses, could mean the difference between thriving and being left behind. The brain chemistry hacks we've explored, those surges of dopamine, the bonds of oxytocin, the spikes of cortisol, are not exclusive to narcissists. They are part of the human operating system, tools that evolution has handed down to help us navigate the complexities of social life. Modern psychology describes the dark triad of personality: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. These traits are not binary switches, but points on a spectrum. Most people possess them in some measure, even if only in fleeting moments or under certain pressures. Self-confidence can easily tip into arrogance. Ambition can shade into exploitation. The desire to be seen and admired can, if left unchecked, become a hunger that distorts our relationships and our sense of self. Social media and contemporary culture amplify these tendencies. Platforms reward self-promotion, outrage, and spectacle. The algorithms are designed to trigger the same brain chemistry loops that narcissists exploit in personal relationships. In this environment, it becomes all too easy to slip into patterns of validation seeking, image crafting, and subtle manipulation, often without even realizing it. So, where do we draw the line? When does healthy self-regard become narcissism? When does influence become exploitation? These are not easy questions, but they are essential ones. To pursue authenticity, morality, and self-mastery, we must first acknowledge the narcissist within, the part of us that craves attention, control, and affirmation. If we are all susceptible to these brain chemistry hacks, then the challenge is not just to guard against manipulation from others, but to recognize and regulate these impulses in ourselves. Only then can we hope to build relationships and societies rooted in genuine connection, empathy, and integrity.